This is my story about English 201. I am not naturally a critical reader. However, when I was younger, I read a lot. In fact, I participated in all sorts of contests at the library and at even our local bank, where prizes were given for the completion of books. It is likely I read a lot because I am a competitive person. For example, in my skating, it is about starting a program, completing it, and then moving on to the next event. That is how I looked at books. Start, read, end. But the truth is that when it came to standardized testing, I always fell short in reading comprehension, which led to an attitude of why even bother reading. Another truth is that when I was reading, if I didn't know a word, I just drew a conclusion as to what it meant or skipped over the sentence and thought. So I specifically took English as a summer course so that I could focus on it and not let it compete with other work during the school year, where it might become the last item I tackled for the day or even the week. I was happy we would be reading short stories and started off with the same approach of getting through the reading. But then came the worksheets. This is where I keyed in on reader response. When I read The Lottery, I was so confused as to what it was all about. When I figured out it was about stoning, I became so caught up in being horrified that I started to miss the message the author was delivering. But one question made me think, which was that, what was the author's message? This was not a story about the act of stoning a living person to death, but it was about how traditions can become crippling and no one knows when to end them. Not only was this story a way for me to understand reader responses, but it was also my biggest challenge of this semester. It was my biggest challenge because it forced me to think past the obvious storyline and really understand what the meaning behind it was and what was going on. The worksheets also helped me use a few reading strategies that I generally struggled with. I was being asked to write out which words I didn't understand. This caused a little embarrassment because there is a chance that these are words everyone else knows. For example, in Two Kinds, there was the word reverie. I figured it meant worlds. It says, an old Chong kept conducting his own private reverie. So I googled the word, and it was sort of that, but actually means a daydream. What a great word. It has such appeal. Most importantly, the worksheets caused me to reread the stories and think about them in more depth. My first reading of Hills Like White Elephants was about reading the story. Then, as I was looking for a worksheet response, something started to strike me, so I reread the story. This is where my aha moment happened. I finally realized what the couple was talking about. They never outright said the word, but once I caught on, I wondered how many other stories I read where the meaning escaped my notice. How many stories did I make assumptions of the wrong main idea? How many stories did I really read start to end, and how many did I actually understand? Then came my use of many digital tools. Dictionary.com, for instance, helped me find the meaning of words in my critical analysis on stories, such as fresco, agate, cowls. These are just some of the few words that I heard of, but I never really knew the meaning, so Dictionary.com helped with that. Google. I searched everything on Google, especially if I didn't understand the meaning of it. Google was there to help me through everything that I needed, all my search features. Google is the right search engine. And then screencasts, which I'm using right now to make this video. My online journaling was so important. I had about 8 journals throughout the semester, and it was a really good way for me to communicate what I was trying to discuss in the stories, how I was able to analyze them and communicate with my professor in order to really understand what was going on and to get a really great experience. And most importantly and lastly, Flipgrid. Flipgrid was so important to me. It was my virtual way of seeing all my other classmates, telling them my opinion, expressing what I thought. We had to contribute our thoughts through the week's assignments, and I learned to think about what I needed to communicate, get it down to an effective message within a time limit, and I think this is a great task because oral communications are important in all aspects of life. So last semester I took Western Civilization. Every 3 units, I had to write a paper based off of 2 primary source documents that were pre-translated since most of the documents were in Old English or another language. As I look back on the course, there were times I skipped past words I didn't understand and thoughts I should have researched further. Had I applied the skills I learned in this course, I may have done better on the papers from Western Civilization and in the overall Western Civilization course. My most memorable experience with this course would definitely come from reading the war poems and the things they carried. They were very eye-opening stories to me and made me think a little more. Without understanding war and the time periods that the stories take place in, they were very good reads for me and drew upon many emotions. I would not say I am now a critical reader, but I have opened myself up to thinking more, looking up words, rereading passages, and many other aspects of reading. I think this will help me as I begin to tackle other subjects, and perhaps I will even have an epiphany like the husband did in the cathedral. Thank you, Professor, for providing me with new critical reading skills and a great English experience.